supposed to be your ex?
She is.
You sure?
I am so happy that we are finally in agreement as a collective that there's nothing romantic about the cheating plot lines in shows, movies. It just ruins it for me. Like the end game just doesn't feel as gratifying because I know what y'all did to get there. It just, ugh. I think one of the worst things for me though is when a show or movie tries to take what was otherwise a very likable character and tries to distort them into something else so that we as an audience feel good about the fact that their partner and whomever else they were cheating on them with was playing in their face the entire time. I was rewatching Degrassi The Next Generation and I realized that that is exactly what happened to Joey's girlfriend, Sydney, who became a casualty of the show trying to spark an old flame that ended up blowing out in the end anyway. And in my unpopular opinion, should have never been relit. Now, because Caitlin and Joey have history, they're OGs in the Degrassi universe. They're from Degrassi Junior High, Degrassi High. It was honestly stacked up against Sydney when Caitlin re-entered the picture. I feel like at that time she wouldn't have really stood a chance in the court of public opinion to begin with. But I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that the show kind of started to intentionally try to make us dislike Sydney so we feel good about Caitlin and Joey playing in her face, basically. So this video is justice for Sydney. By all accounts, what we see about Sydney's character from the very beginning, in the context of her relationship with Joey and his family, particularly Angela, Sydney never comes across as overbearing, but caring and attentive. She's a great friend to Joey's friends. One of the examples I can think of is when Snake was first diagnosed with cancer and Sydney and Joey went over to their house, prepared some food for them as they were trying to readjust to what their new normal was going to be like with this new diagnosis.
Salad, Sydney seafood jambalaya.
I know, sounds suspect, but the omega-3 fatty acids will do wonders for Snake's immune system.
Although it is kind of maybe explicitly hinted that Sydney is more financially stable and successful than Joey, I don't recall a time where she ever took that information and weaponized that against him. Not once. Which is why I emphasize the point that up until the show was trying to set Caitlin and Joey up to get back together, there was no reason for us to dislike Sydney as a character, as a love interest for Joey, or as a semi-maternal figure for Craig, and a more involved maternal figure for Angela. One of the things that I noticed immediately about how the show was trying to diminish Sydney's character, and honestly the thing that kind of annoyed me the most, was how they tried to use the fact that Sydney cared about her career as some sort of character flaw, as if we don't already know that Caitlin is ultra career woman. And there's nothing wrong with that from either of these characters. It's just not a fair comparison because we see it on both sides of the fence. We already know that Sydney takes her career seriously, but she really does try to be present when she can, and when she can't, does try to make earnest attempts to make up for her absence. In season 3 episode 11, Sydney made it clear to Angela, Joey, and everybody else that unfortunately she could not make it to Angela's recital because of a prior work commitment. We can infer that this is not last minute news to anyone, and I'm making that inference because of the way that Sydney's personality is. She does not strike me as a type who would just be like, oh, you know, last minute I have this obligation, oh well, you guys figure it out. Now, all of this is happening as Sydney is making the final touches on Angela's dress that she sewed herself in preparation for this pageant. And I don't think she did it because she was trying to make up for the fact that she wasn't going to go. It was just something that she did as a kind gesture regardless. Joey presses the issue a little bit more, not necessarily in a malicious way, I want to add, to which Sydney kindly yet firmly reminds him that she can't make it. Like, she wants to be there, but she just cannot. And she's already talked to Angela about it. Angela understands. And to make up for her absence, she is going to take Angela out shopping, which the two of them had an agreement upon. She walks off screen, and then you see Craig kind of make some weird retort about how Sydney's trying to buy Angela's affection, which I think was really uncalled for. Caitlin later meets Joey at the recital, though we don't see it as an audience. I'm pretty sure that Sydney was aware of the fact that Joey had invited Caitlin to show up. You know, he's being a proud dad. He's really excited. He's just so happy to see Angela just out there on the ice. And Joey makes a comment that he just can't believe that Sydney is missing all of this. To which Caitlin then says, it's her loss. I want to pause for a moment right here. Caitlin was getting on my nerves this entire episode, her and Joey, but it's not the fact that she made that comment, it's how she said it, and really how she's been moving this entire episode that made me feel like she was low-key plotting. Caitlin, whether she was conscious of it or not, had been comparing herself to Sydney from the moment we see her in this holiday special. Let's even rewind it back to the tree trimming, which is the beginning of this episode. Sydney makes a suggestion that if they rotate the tree a little bit, it might improve the appearance. Feels a little bit type A, whatever, but her suggestion is correct. It does improve it. And we see Caitlin on the side being a hater before she made the suggestion, and when she was right, she was mad about it.
To admit, Sydney, it actually really does look better.
Sydney has an uncanny eye for everything. I don't know what we'd do without her.
Okay, but anyways, I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic. We also know that Caitlin is a very career-driven woman herself. In fact, one of the reasons, in addition to just things that were naturally gonna come up when these two got back together, that Caitlin and Joey end up breaking up again is because she has a job opportunity in LA and she decides to make that leap and choose that job. Not only that, but she was also cheating on Joey, monkey branching. These two do it to each other. If you know the Degrassi lore, Caitlin and Joey, this is why they just don't. Anyways, I digress. What I am saying is just because Caitlin happened to be available one night, we shouldn't see that as a one-up against Sydney. It's not even fair and it doesn't even make sense. Moving on to something else that I just felt was really unfair was how Sydney's feelings more or less felt like they were just very invalidated in her response to how she was seeing things unfold between Caitlin and Joey. Caitlin is around all the time. She has history not only with Joey, but also his friend group. It's just an incredibly uncomfortable situation to be in. You kind of see them making lingering looks at each other when you walk through the door. I think that would make anybody feel concerned or at the very least uncomfortable. Not to mention when Sydney and Caitlin first meet each other before either of them knows their involvement with Joey, Caitlin makes a joke about how they always find their way back to each other and it'll probably happen again, not knowing that Sydney is Joey's current partner.
I'm Sydney. Hi, Caitlin. I'm a very old friend of Spike's.
Oh, and then you know Joey too.
Do I? I guess you know him well. It's one of those great unrequited romances. On-off revolving door. I actually just moved back here, so I guess we'll see.
Caitlin also has what I feel to be somewhat or just explicitly inappropriate conversations with Joey that again, he as the person in the relationship should have shut down about being single and needing somebody to keep her warm at night, and you see all the subtle signs throughout the oh my god.
Popular programs in the country.
Yeah, well, it's a cool day job. Doesn't really keep me warm at night, though, does it?
Sydney was not wrong about being wary of Caitlin and Joey's relationship and their dynamic and how they interact with each other. At the same time, she was somewhat stuck between a rock and a hard place because if she would have brought this up, she could potentially come across as the insecure current girlfriend who's jealous of an old flame that doesn't matter anymore. And I could see Joey saying something exactly like that. Like, we're just friends. It's not that deep. That was a long time ago. Holding her tongue was also hard because she also had to quite literally pretend like she wasn't peeping what Caitlin had been putting down the entire time. Which is why I'm going to stand firm on this. Sydney's intuition being in high gear around Caitlin was for good reason. And the hard thing about being early with certain situations like this is that everybody more or less is going to pretend like they don't know what you're talking about, or they're going to make you seem like you are just reading too much into something that's not that deep. But when the thing comes knocking on their door too, it's like, I told you this was coming. I told you I was able to peep what was going down for a while. In the scene where we see Sydney asking Caitlin if she can babysit Angela, I know that one kind of doesn't really land well with a lot of people. Some people have even speculated that it feels Mean Girl-esque. I actually have a different perspective on it. I think that on the surface, it was a good faith request, but subconsciously, or what's underscored, is maybe that was Sydney's way of, one, trying to extend some type of really obscure olive branch, and then two, also trying to test the waters a bit and maybe talk herself out of the insecurity that she has about any perceived feelings that Caitlin might have for Joey. She even asked Caitlin about a guy who's in her office, like, hey, do you think that this guy might be somebody you might be interested in? And Caitlin quickly says, lets her know that no, this man, he's gay and I don't really do showbiz guys, and kind of reaffirms that she's interested in guys who are more down to earth and regular. You see the body language on Sydney as she's starting to tense up. It's like she's having a revelation that everything that she's feeling in some capacity isn't for nothing.
Strictly real world guys for me. So, big favor time, Kate.
Now let's fast forward to the night where lines are crossed physically, because let's be real, they've already been crossed in other ways at this point. That night, Caitlin harmlessly allows Angela to wear the dress that Sydney made for her pageant, just to kind of play around in. And she's apprehensive at first when Angela asks her, but she figures it shouldn't be any harm as long as you just don't get the dress dirty. Joey and Sydney come back from their night out. Sydney is bothered that Angela has this dress on and she's just playing around in it. And, Angela's young. She doesn't really understand things. So it's not that she's mad at her, but rightfully so. She's like, hey, I made that dress for a special occasion. So Caitlin's like, I told her it was fine. Don't get mad at her. It was on me. And then Sydney is sharp.
Oh, Sydney, don't be mad at her.
I'm not mad at her.
Joey offers to walk Caitlin out, still acting obtuse, I might add. And then Caitlin offers some kind of a self-deprecating apology about what happened. Next, Caitlin pulls the Sydney hates me card, and it's like, girl, she would have a reason to. Like, let's and not over no dress. Like, you, Caitlin, please, please be for real. If you were in Sydney's shoes, how would you feel in this entire situation? Like, stop. What I will give Joey a sliver of credit for is that he didn't take this as an opportunity to start dunking on Sydney's personality or her characters. Like, no, Sydney's cool. She just likes things as they are. She just likes things as so. And then Joey's trifling self decides to reassure Caitlin with a forehead kiss, which, you guessed it, leads into an actual kiss. Who could have predicted that? The next day, Caitlin she just can't wait to tell Spike what went down, so much so that she ends up messing up Baby Jack's first Christmas pictures. In the process of explaining this to Spike, she then tries to throw some subtle shade at Sydney by saying,
I mean, he's dating a woman that irons her sheets. Yeah, that's not right.
okay, girl. Spike encourages Caitlin to really assess her feelings before she makes any kind of moves. So I guess Caitlin has some resolve and she decides, I'm ready to go take somebody's man because he is my man at heart. So she writes him this letter about how, if he's down for it, she's down for it. If he's in, then she's in, and we shouldn't let this moment pass us by. She drops it off and she feels good, and then the weight of everything that she's doing just finally clicks, and it's just like a wave crashes over her, and she rushes to try to get the letter out of the mailbox. And it's one of those mailboxes slots that is attached to the door. She doesn't have any other way to get the letter, so Caitlin decides the best solution is to break into the house. Of course, at that point, she gets stuck, and there's nothing she can do except for wait for everybody to get home. So they find Caitlin stuck in the window, and everybody's surprised, like, what are you doing here? And you can pretty much tell that Joey did not tell Sydney anything about what happened last night. I don't know. Joey, sometimes the way he be acting, just. Caitlin tries to come up with some excuse that she left her tablet at the house, and that's why she really needed to get in there. She just couldn't wait because that's her lifeline. Immediately, Sydney's like, I'm not gaslighting myself no more. I know what's happening here, and I'm gonna shut it down.
I don't think it's here, Caitlin.
That's so weird.
Because you know what's really weird, Caitlin, is walking into this house and seeing you suspended from the kitchen window.
I told you.
A lie. I'm not stupid, okay? I know you still have feelings for Joe, and I get it. He's amazing.
Sydney.
But here's what I also know. Joe and this family, they need me. Not some charming, klutzy, fun and games blast from the past. Me.
Caitlin then snatches the letter out of Craig's hand on her way out, tears filling up and welling in her eyes, and wishes him a Merry Christmas as she escapes out the door, heart-wrenched by what just happened. Deserved. Now again, I know what some of y'all are thinking. Why didn't Sydney just go talk to her man? Sydney didn't know about the kiss, and we can infer that Joey has been carrying on like nothing happened. So from her perspective, it just feels like Caitlin's the one perpetuating all of this. I mean, she's wrong about that because it takes two to tango, but I will at least give her some grace in that regard. And in my opinion, Sydney didn't owe Caitlin any more grace at this point. She already tried to talk herself out of what she was seeing with her own two eyes, and now it's physical, it's proof. Getting into this next part, I really hope that it's been clear by now that we are also reading Mr. Jeremiah his rights, because he is not innocent in this situation at all. Joey dropped the ball significantly. He was the one in the relationship, and he screwed up. The boundaries kept getting crossed, the lines kept being blurred because he kept entertaining the situation. If he would have shut it down from the beginning, none of this would have happened. He had a responsibility to protect his relationship and his partner, and he chose to do neither of those things. So when he finally confronts Sydney at the end, asking her if she said something to Caitlin to make her go away, it was completely audacious for him to act like he couldn't understand why Sydney would be uncomfortable with Caitlin being around, knowing that he's been flirting with her this entire time, knowing that he kissed her, knowing the feelings that he has for her while in a relationship with Sydney. I mean, it is the ultimate example of a gaslight. My God, today. All of which he never told her about, I might add. He never explicitly stated anything that he had done or his part in it at all.
Craig said he overheard you talking to Caitlin yesterday.
Oh?
Did you say anything to make her go away?
Yes.
And why would you do that?
Because every time I turn around, there's Caitlin. She's supposed to be your ex.
She is.
You sure?
Eventually, Sydney is able to get Joey to say the quiet part out loud. I need you to tell me that I'm imagining all this and that you love me more than this woman, or that you choose me. And of course, he doesn't say anything, which is confirming his choice, Caitlin. So Sydney walks away from this sad, heartbroken, distraught right at the holiday season, while Joey, Craig, and Angela make their way to the airport in some romantic gesture to go catch Caitlin before she departs on her flight. Happy holidays. It didn't even take Joey a second to marinate on everything that he just did. Like, he was fine with it, I guess. That's how I know he didn't really care about Sydney for real. Like, okay. Now, to put a nice Christmas bow on this, Sydney was not this stoic character who was getting in the way of true love. Maybe she didn't handle every aspect of the situation perfectly. I just feel like she was kind of darned if she did or didn't. Joey and Caitlin were actively playing in her face and behind her back, all while expecting her to still uphold this level of grace and maturity and consideration for their I don't know. Caitlin and Joey are more complex characters than just the situation alone, so it's not me saying that they are just horrible, trash characters. If you watch the whole series, there are plenty of moments where Joey and Caitlin truly shine and do some amazing selfless things. But when it comes to relationships, these two are just a hot mess. Sydney was not a bad character just because she was not Caitlin. All in all, though, when you really look at the way things continue to go down, I would say that Sydney dodged a bullet anyway. So